to Fundamentals of Cybersecurity, CSCI150N. This is your instructor, Peter Keurig, and we're in Chapter 5, Cryptography. In this chapter, you will learn how to understand the fundamentals of cryptography, identify and describe the three types of cryptography, list and describe current cryptographic algorithms, and explain how cryptography is applied for security. The outline for this lecture is cryptography in practice, historical perspective, algorithms, hashing functions, symmetric and asymmetric encryption, quantum cryptography, steganography, and cryptographic algorithm use. So cryptography is the science of encrypting or hiding information. Plain text is the unencrypted information or message before it goes through the cryptographic process. Ciphertext is what comes out of the other side of that process, so it's the encrypted message or the information. Cryptanalysis is the process of trying to analyze an encrypted message and in an attempt to retrieve what the original unencrypted message is. Differential cryptanalysis is done by comparing the input plain text to the output ciphertext to try to determine the key used. As you'll discover later on in when they tried to crack the Enigma, they had an idea what the message was going into the cryptographic process and an idea of what part of it was coming out. So they compare the two and try to figure out the key in between so they can use it to crack other cryptographic messages. Then there's linear cryptanalysis, which is similar but uses both plain text and ciphertext. But it puts the plain text through a simplified cipher to try to deduce what the key is likely to be in the full version of the cipher. So modern computers have increased the need for as well as lowered the cost of employing cryptography for securing information. In the past, the effectiveness rested in the secrecy of the algorithm. But with modern digital cryptography, the strength is based on sheer complexity, not on the secrecy. And that's why you'll find that most of the algorithms we're going to talk about in this video are open sourced, and you can actually look at the algorithms and see how it's done if you're curious about it. The power of networks in modern algorithms has also been employed to manage automatic key management. Cryptographic functions are used in a wide range of applications, including but not limited to hiding data, resisting forgery, resisting unauthorized change, resisting repudiation, policy enforcement, and key exchanges. In spite of the strength of modern cryptography, it still fails due to other issues. Known plain text attacks, poorly protected keys, and repeated passphrases are examples of how strong cryptography is rendered weak via implementation mistakes. Modern cryptographic algorithms are far stronger than needed given the state of cryptanalysis. The weaknesses in crypto systems come from the systems surrounding the algorithm because of implementation and operationalization details. Attackers do not break crypto, they bypass it. Over time, weaknesses and errors as well as shortcuts are found in the algorithms, quote-unquote, breaking them. As all methods can be broken with brute force, one question is how much effort is required, at what cost, and when compared to the value of the asset under protection. So when you start to examine a crypto system and whether or not you want to implement it or not, the following things you need to take in consideration. The mechanism that you're using for the encryption, is it no longer useful for the purpose that it's for? So are you choosing an algorithm or tool that has been quote-unquote broken, therefore it doesn't really provide the protection that you need for the asset you're trying to protect. Next, the cost of recovering the clear text without benefit of the key has fallen to a low level. In other words, the amount of money that somebody would have to put in or the effort that somebody would have to put in to get to what you're at is so small that it's not providing any protection at all. The cost has fallen to equal or less than the value of the data or the next least cost attack. So in other words, if the value of your data is more expensive than what the least cost of the attack is, so let's say the value is $100 million database, but it's only going to cost somebody $100 to break into that $100 million database using the crypto system that you're using, then that crypto system is not worth it because the cost of implementing it is far more than what it costs to break it or to get around it. The cost has fallen within several orders of magnitude of the cost of encryption or the value of the data. That's kind of what I was coming back to, the $100 million versus $100 order of magnitude. the elapsed time of the attack has fallen to within magnitudes of life of the data, regardless of the cost thereof. So, for example, brute force against something with a very high level of encryption could take hundreds of years. So that's worth the encryption. But if it's something that just takes a number of hours, like maybe 10 or 15 hours to crack it, then you know what? Maybe the protection is not worth the cost and the effort. The cost has fallen to less than the cost of a brute force attack against that key. That kind of comes back to what I was saying. If it only takes a matter of hours to break the key using nothing but brute force, then it's probably not worth implementing. And then someone has recovered one key or one message. So once somebody has figured out what the key is, or has figured out the message, that becomes their Rosetta Stone, or their capability of cracking future messages. So therefore, the cryptographic the crypto systems you're using just is not valuable at that point. So when we talk about cryptography, there's actually two fundamental methods that can be used in cryptography. One is substitution and the other is transposition. Substitution is the replacement of an item with another item, and transposition is the changing in the order of things. That's kind of like a word jumble or something of that sort. And then when we talk about the algorithms, not only do we talk about the methods, we also look at the strength of them using terms such as key space and work factor. Key space is the total number of possible keys that algorithm can produce, and the work factor is how much work goes into performing a brute force attack on that algorithm. So the more key space that there is, the more possible keys that there are, obviously the harder it is to perform a brute factor. So think of it as if you had an 8-character password and you had a 15-character password, and you were trying to break it using every possible combination of letters. You would come across the 8 characters through every conceivable combination before you come across the 15 characters. So translate that into key space. It's the same thing. The bigger the keys, the more keys that are available, the harder it is to do a brute force. And work factor, we talk about work factor in years usually, so hundreds of years versus hours, things of that sort. So how long is it going to take us to break this particular code if we were to use a brute force attack? From a historic perspective, substitution ciphers seem to be the most common. The Romans typically used a method known as shift ciphering. In this case, one letter of the alphabet is shifted a set number of spaces in the alphabet for another letter. You probably did this as a kid, where you had the decoder ring or whatever. You could spin the ring, and it would shift the letters however many number of clicks or whatever. And these ciphers are simple to use, and they're also simple to break, because hiding information was still important. More advanced transposition and substitution ciphers were required. As systems and technology became more complex, ciphers were frequently automated by some mechanical or electromechanical device. So that's the decoder ring I was talking about. And the other thing is, a good study is the German Enigma machine from World War II. And you'll see that in a video today or this week in the class. Also, from a historical perspective, one-time pads are an interesting form of encryption in that they theoretically are perfect and unbreakable. The key is the same size or larger than the material being encrypted. The plain text is XORed against the key producing the ciphertext. What makes the one-time pad perfect is the size of the key. If you use a key space full of keys, you will decrypt every possible message of the same length as the original, with no way to discriminate which one is correct. This makes a one-time pad unable to be broken by even brute force methods, provided that the key is not reused. This makes a one-time pad less than practical for any mass use. So looking at algorithms are step-by-step recursive computational procedures for solving a problem in a finite number of steps. The cryptographic algorithm, what is commonly called the encryption algorithm or the cipher, is made up of mathematical steps for encrypting and decrypting information. Keys are special pieces of data used in both the encryption and decryption processes. Key management includes anything having to do with the exchange and storage, safeguarding, and revocation of keys. And entropy is the measure of uncertainty or randomness associated with a series of values. Hashing functions or hash functions are special mathematical functions that perform one-way computations, which means that once the algorithm is processed, there is no feasible way to use the ciphertext to retrieve the plain text that was used to generate it. Common uses of hashing algorithms are to store computer passwords and to ensure message integrity. The idea is that the hashing can produce a unique value that corresponds to the data entered, but the hash value is also reproducible by anyone else running the same algorithm against the same data. A hash algorithm can be compromised by what is called a collision attack, in which an attacker finds two different messages that hash the same value. So some of you may have seen hashes when downloading files from the internet, sites that use mirrors or torrents as a means of offloading the downloading of files from their particular site will often offer a hash for you to compare to ensure that the file that you download from the mirrors or through other systems on a torrent is the authentic file and has been modified. So theoretically speaking, if the file is unchanged, if it's authentic, it should match the hash value they provide you with. But if someone changes anything like a single bit in the program, the hash value will be completely different. The current hash algorithms that are out there that are currently being used, the most popular are MD5 and SHA. You're seeing more and more higher levels of SHA becoming available, with SHA 512 being the highest right now. So there's two types of encryption. There's symmetric and there's asymmetric. Symmetric encryption is the older and simpler method of encrypting information. The basis of symmetric information is that both the sender and the receiver have the same key. All symmetric algorithms are based upon this shared secret principle, including the unbreakable one-time pad method. So common symmetric encryption algorithms are DES, triple DES, AES, CAST, RC, Blowfish, Twofish, and IDEA. With symmetric encryption, there's two methods that can be used. There's block and then there's stream data. Block operations are performed on blocks of data, enabling both transposition and substitution operations. This is possible when large pieces of data are present for the operation. Stream data has become more common with audio and video across the web. The primary characteristic of stream data is that it's not available in large chunks, but either by bit or byte by byte. Piece is too small for block operations. Stream ciphers operate using substitution only and therefore offer less robust protection than block ciphers. The book provides a side-by-side comparison of both block and stream ciphers. Asymmetric encryption is more commonly known as public key cryptography. Asymmetric cryptography uses two separate but mathematically related keys. The keys are used in opposing fashion. One key undoes the actions of the other key and vice versa. And the two keys are the public key and the private key. Now they work on the principle of trapdoor function. These are mathematical equations or problems that are so difficult that without the key they cannot be done. For example, factoring large prime numbers. So common asymmetric cryptography algorithms are Diffie-Hellman, which is one of the original, and you can still find it today in things like IPsec, RSA, Algamal, and elliptical curve computations. When we look at asymmetric encryption and we compare it to symmetric encryption tends to be faster, is less computationally involved, and is better for bulk transfers. But it suffers from a key management problem in that the keys must be protected from unauthorized parties. Asymmetric methods resolve the key secrecy issue with the public keys, but add significant computational complexity that makes them less suitable for bulk encryption. Bulk encryption can be done using the best of both systems by utilizing asymmetric encryption to pass along a symmetric key, and then using the symmetric key and a symmetric algorithm to do the encryption of the bulk of the data. And this is what you see with TLS and SSL transactions. Digital signatures, a highly useful tool, are not practical without asymmetric methods. The most recent type of cryptography is quantum cryptography. Quantum cryptography is based upon quantum mechanics, principally superposition and entanglement. The principle we are most concerned with in regards to cryptography is that in quantum mechanics, The measuring of data disrupts the data. What this means to cryptographers is that it's easy to tell if a message has been eavesdropped on in transit, allowing people to exchange the key data while knowing that the data has not been intercepted in transmission. The use of quantum cryptography is called quantum key distribution. This is currently the only commercial use of quantum cryptography, and although there are several methods of sending the key, they all adhere to the same principle. Key bits are sent and then checked at the remote end of the transmission, and then more key bits are sent using the same process. Once an entire key has been sent securely, symmetric encryption can then be used, kind of the same way that we use the asymmetric to pass the key for a symmetric algorithm in order to do large bulk encryption. Steganography is the concealing of text messages in a picture. The internet contains multiple billions of image files, allowing a hidden message to be located almost anywhere without being discovered. Because not all detection programs can detect every kind of stenography, trying to find a message in an internet is akin to attempting to find a needle in a haystack the size of the Pacific Ocean. Even a Google search for steganography returns thousands of images. So imagine if you are part of an organization like a terrorist organization or spies or something of that sort, and you want to pass information. You could do it in front of everybody without them realizing it by putting in an image and putting it on Facebook or Instagram or something of those sorts, where you pass an image and the data is actually intertwined in the coding of the image. Cryptographic algorithms have many uses. As we pretty much all know, confidentiality is the ability to keep something secret, so you can encrypt it and you can't read it. Integrity ensures that both the sender and the receiver know that the message was not altered in transmission. That's the hashing algorithms we just talked about. Authentication is the matching of user accounts through previously shared credentials. Once again, it's kind of using the hashing algorithms to compare like passwords in a password file. Non-repudiation means that the message sender cannot deny that they sent the message. So in a public key infrastructure, if they send it to you from using their private key and they send it to you, you have their public key. It authenticates to you that this is the person sending it is the authentic person, because he should be the only one with that private key. And then cipher suites are a collection of different algorithms that can be used for authentication, encryption, decryption, digital signatures, and hashing. Other cryptographic uses are key exchange, which can be performed in band and even under external observation, as long as the secret message is never exposed to the outside parties. Key escrow is keeping a copy of the encryption key with a trusted third party, and they probably protect that with the encryption as well. Session keys are symmetric keys used for encrypting messages during a communication session. It is generated from random seeds and is used for the duration of a communication session. So it's kind of like that one-time pad that we talked about earlier. Ephemeral keys are cryptographic keys that are used only once after they are generated, usually for key exchange. Key stretching takes what would be weak keys and stretches them to make the system more secure against brute force attacks. Typical methodology used for key stretching involves increasing the computational complexity by adding iterative rounds of computation. So I discussed before, there's a algorithm for symmetric called DES, and triple DES is basically doing that. It's using multiple computations of the DES algorithm in order to strengthen the algorithm. There are some secrecy principles that go along with using cryptographic algorithms. There's several conditions or principles associated with secrecy. One is confusion, which is a principle to affect the randomness of an output. The concept is to operationalize by ensuring that each character of the ciphertext depends on several parts of the key. Confusion places a constraint on the relationship between the ciphertext and the key employed, forcing an effect that increases entropy. Diffusion is a principle that the statistical analysis of plain text and ciphertext results in a form of dispersion, rendering one structurally independent of the other. In plain terms, a change in one character of the plain text should result in multiple changes in the ciphertext, in a manner that changes in ciphertext does not reveal information as to the structure of the plain text. Perfect forward secrecy is a property of a public key system in which a key derived from another key is not compromised even if the original key is compromised in the future. This is especially important in session key generation, where the compromise of future communication sessions may become compromised. If perfect forward secrecy were not in place, then past messages that had been recorded could be decrypted. Some final uses for cryptographic algorithms are transport encryption, which is used to protect data in motion. Digital signatures is a cryptographic implementation designed to demonstrate authenticity and identify or identity associated with a message. Digital rights management, this is for those of you who buy videos and music online. It ensures that you have the right to watch what you watch and protects the rights of the people who own the intellectual property. Cryptographic applications such as Pretty Good Privacy, GNU Privacy, and so forth, encrypted file system in Windows, and BitLocker, and the use of proven technologies. When setting up a cryptographic scheme, it's important to use proven technologies. Proven cryptographic libraries and proven cryptographically correct random number generators are the foundational elements associated with a solid program. Homegrown and custom elements in these areas can greatly increase risk associated with a broken system. I'm your instructor, Peter Keurig, for Nashville Community College. Thank you for watching.